The Billionaire Who Fell in Love with a Poor Baker. A heartwarming love story. She never believed in love at first sight until the man who always ordered a flat white changed her life forever. Every morning, just after the sun rose over Maple Street, the smell of fresh bread floated through the little bakery where Emma Hughes worked. It was the kind of scent that made strangers smile and made lonely hearts feel a little less alone. Emma had been up since 5 a.m., kneading dough, brushing egg, glaze on golden croissants, and humming quietly to herself. The morning light touched her face as if reminding her she was still here, still trying, still hoping. At 26, her life was simple but heavy. She worked 2 jobs to take care of her younger brother, Liam, since their parents' accident. Some days she felt like a candle burning at both ends. Yet, every morning, she tied her hair up, dusted her apron, and told herself, maybe today will be better. At 8:15 a.m. sharp, the doorbell chimed the same soft sound she heard every morning at that time. And, like clockwork, he walked in, tall, calm, always in a navy coat. The kind of man who looked like he belonged in glass offices and important meetings, not in a tiny bakery on a quiet London street. But he came anyway, every day, and he always ordered the same thing, a flat white and a chocolate croissant. "Good morning," he said, his voice smooth and kind, carrying that quiet tone that somehow made her heart slow down instead of race. "Morning," Emma replied, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "The usual?" He smiled, a small, knowing smile. "You remember." That smile, warm and effortless, stayed with her long after he left. She didn't know his name, but she knew his habits. The way he tapped his fingers lightly on the counter while waiting. The way he smiled at every customer, even the rude ones. The way he said thank you like he actually meant it. He was different, not loud, not flirtatious, just gentle. And for a girl who had built her world on being strong, that gentleness felt dangerously close to comfort. That evening, as she locked up the bakery, the city lights reflected off the wet pavement. The drizzle painted silver ripples across the quiet street. She wrapped her coat tighter and smiled to herself, thinking about him again. He never told her his name, but his smile had already found a home in her thoughts. The next morning, Emma arrived early. She swept, baked, arranged the bread neatly, pretending not to look at the door every few minutes. At 8:15, the bell chimed again. "Good morning," he said, his grey-blue eyes soft as ever. "Morning," she replied, hiding her nervous smile. "You're early. Couldn't sleep," he said simply. Thought coffee might help. She poured his drink carefully, her hands steady even though her heart wasn't. He looked at her wrist suddenly and frowned. A faint bruise, barely visible under her sleeve. "Did you hurt yourself?" he asked. Emma quickly pulled her sleeve down. "Just slipped on the stairs." He didn't believe her, but he didn't press. Instead, he said quietly, "You should be careful. Good people deserve better days than bruises." The words stopped her heart for a second. No one had ever said anything like that to her. Not like that, not with real concern. He smiled softly, picked up his cup, and added, "See you tomorrow, Miss Hughes." Emma froze. Miss Hughes? How did he know her name? She had never told him. She turned to ask, but the door was already closing behind him, the bell chiming softly like a heartbeat. That night, she found herself thinking about him again, about his voice, his kindness, the strange way he noticed the little things about her. And when she fell asleep, she dreamed of a quiet morning where he would walk in again, smile, that gentle smile, and for the first time, stay a little longer. The next morning, she found a folded napkin on the counter. On it, written in neat handwriting, were 5 words that made her chest tighten. "Thank you for the warmth. A road." Emma read it again and again, her hands trembling slightly. No flowers, no promises, just words simple and kind. And sometimes, kindness is how love begins. The next morning, the smell of freshly baked bread filled the little bakery just like always. The shelves were full, the floors were clean, and Emma's heart felt light. She had kept the napkin from yesterday, the one with the words, "Thank you for the warmth." It sat safely in her pocket, folded neatly, as if it were something fragile, something worth protecting. The bell above the door rang at 8:15 a.m., and right on time, he walked in. Same navy coat, same calm smile. "Morning," Ryan said softly. "Morning," she replied, trying not to sound as happy as she felt. She didn't know why his presence felt like sunlight. Maybe because life had given her so much rain. He ordered his usual, left his usual tip, and as he turned to leave, he said, "Keep smiling, Miss Hughes. You make this place feel alive." Emma laughed. "You say that as if you come here for me and not the coffee." He paused at the door, smiled again, and said, "Maybe I do." And then he was gone. At noon, her boss, Mr. Carter, called everyone to the back room. His face was pale, his hands fidgeting with his cap. "I have bad news," he said quietly. "The rent's gone up again. I tried to negotiate, but I can't afford it anymore. The bakery will close by next week." Emma froze. The sound of the ovens, the smell of cinnamon, the laughter of customers, it all blurred in her ears. "Close?" she whispered. "You mean forever?" Mr. Carter nodded. "I'm sorry, love. I really am." She spent the rest of the day in silence. Each loaf of bread she pulled from the oven felt heavier than the last. This bakery wasn't just her job. It was her home, her safe place, the one spot in London where she didn't feel invisible. When Ryan came in that afternoon for his second coffee, something he rarely did, he noticed instantly. Her smile was gone. "Rough day?" he asked gently. Emma looked up, trying to hide her watery eyes. "Something like that." He didn't push, he just said, "Then today's coffee is on me," and slipped a small note into the tip jar before leaving. That night, after closing, Emma sat on one of the wooden chairs, staring at the quiet shop. The lights were dim, the counters clean, but it all felt empty, as if the soul of the place had already left. She ran her fingers along the countertop and whispered, "You've been good to me." Then she noticed something taped onto the register, a plain white envelope with her name on it, Emma. Her heart pounded as she tore it open. Inside was a handwritten note. "Is greater than. Some places are too special to disappear. Some hearts are too kind to break. Keep the doors open, Miss Hughes. Door 9. Beneath the note was a bank receipt showing the bakery rent had been paid in full for the next 12 months. Emma's knees nearly gave out. She pressed her hand to her mouth, her eyes filling with tears. Who would do that? Why would anyone do that? For her. The next morning, Ryan came in like nothing had happened. Same smile, same calm voice. "Morning," he said. "One flat white, please." Emma's hands shook slightly as she made his drink. She couldn't hold it in any longer. "You," she said softly, placing the cup in front of him. "It was you, wasn't it?" He met her gaze and smiled faintly. "What makes you think that?" She stared at him, her throat tight. "Because no one else would care enough." Ryan looked down at his cup for a long moment. Then he said simply, "Every person deserves someone who believes in them. That's all." She wanted to say thank you. She wanted to tell him how much it meant, but the words stuck in her throat. All she could do was watch him walk out the door, leaving behind the scent of coffee, a half smile, and a heart that suddenly didn't feel so alone anymore. That night, Emma stood outside the bakery and looked up at the glowing sign. For the first time in weeks, she didn't feel small. She didn't feel forgotten. Someone out there, a quiet stranger with kind eyes, believed she was worth saving. And maybe, just maybe, that was the beginning of love. It had been 2 weeks since the bakery was saved. 2 weeks since the mysterious envelope appeared. And 2 weeks since Emma had started looking forward to 8:15 a.m. more than any other moment of her day. Every morning, Ryan came in his calm voice, his polite smile, and that quiet warmth that filled the little shop without effort. Sometimes he stayed for only a few minutes. Sometimes he worked from the corner table for hours, laptop open, eyes occasionally lifting to watch the rain fall outside. And every morning, Emma noticed something new about him. The way he stirred his coffee 3 times before drinking it. The way he looked at people not like a man in a hurry, but like someone who saw. One slow afternoon, when the last customer had left, Ryan stayed behind. He was helping her move flour bags to the back room when Emma finally said what had been sitting in her chest for days. "You don't have to keep coming here. You know," she said softly. He paused, setting a bag down. "You don't want me to?" "I didn't say that," she replied quickly, blushing. You're here every day. You must have other places to be." Ryan smiled, dusting his hands. "Maybe I do, but none of them smell like fresh bread and cinnamon." She laughed a small, shy laugh that slipped out before she could stop it. Then her voice softened. "You really did pay the rent, didn't you?" Ryan looked away for a moment. "You already know the answer. But why? she asked again. You don't even know me. He leaned against the counter, thinking for a long time before speaking. I used to know someone like you, he said quietly. Someone who worked hard, gave everything, and never asked for help. She was my sister. Emma's smile faded. What happened to her? Ryan's eyes grew distant. She got sick. We couldn't afford the care she needed. I promised myself that if I ever got the chance, I'd help people like her, people who never stopped fighting. Emma's throat tightened. I'm so sorry. He shook his head gently. Don't be. Helping you. It feels like I kept part of that promise. That night, Emma couldn't sleep. She sat by her window, watching the lights of London shimmer across the skyline. She thought of Ryan's voice, low and sincere, and the sadness in his eyes when he spoke of his sister. He wasn't just kind. He was broken too, but in a beautiful way, the kind of broken that still made space for others. A few days later, rain poured outside as Emma worked alone. The wind rattled the glass, and she had just finished wiping down the counter when the door opened. Ryan stood there, soaked, holding a small brown bag. Rough weather, she said, smiling. You didn't have to come out in this. He shrugged, brushing water from his hair. I brought something. He handed her the bag. Inside was a small notebook, leather-bound, neatly tied with a ribbon. I found it in a shop on the Strand, he said. Thought you might use it for your sketches. Emma blinked. My sketches? He smiled slightly. You told Mrs. Carter last week that you take design classes at night. I overheard. I hope you don't mind. She looked down at the notebook, her fingers brushing the cover. The pages were blank, waiting like dreams she had never had time to chase. I don't know what to say, she whispered. Then don't say anything, Ryan replied gently. Just promise me you'll fill it with something that's yours. That evening, when he left, Emma stood by the window watching the rain trail down the glass. Her reflection looked softer, somehow lighter. She opened the notebook and wrote her first words on the clean white page. Is greater than, for the man who reminds me that kindness is still real. The days that followed were gentle and quiet. They talked more about childhood memories, favorite songs, the best places in London to watch the sunset. Emma told him about her brother Liam, who dreamed of becoming a chef. Ryan told her about the bakery his grandmother once owned, the first place that ever smelled like home to him. They laughed together, sometimes about nothing at all. And every time he smiled at her, she felt something growing slow, steady, and warm. It wasn't fireworks. It wasn't loud. It was something deeper, like a sunrise creeping softly over a dark horizon. One night, as they walked together after closing, Ryan stopped under a streetlight. Emma, he said softly. She turned, the rain glistening on her hair. Yes? He hesitated, his hands in his coat pockets. I don't know what this is between us, but it feels like something worth protecting. Her heart skipped. She wanted to say yes, to admit that she felt it too, but the fear of losing something so pure held her still. So she only smiled and said quietly, is greater than. Then let's not name it yet. Let's just let it be. Ryan nodded, his lips curving in a gentle smile. Then I'll meet you here again tomorrow, same time, 8:15, she whispered. And as he walked away, her heart whispered the truth she couldn't yet say out loud. She was falling in love. It was one of those golden afternoons that made the whole city shimmer like a dream. The bakery smelled of fresh cinnamon rolls and melting sugar. Emma stood behind the counter, tying ribbons around pastry boxes, when Ryan walked in tall, calm, and smiling like the day had been waiting for him. He leaned slightly on the counter, voice gentle. You know, I've been meaning to ask. Emma looked up, teasing. Ask what? If you'd ever come and see my world for a change, he said softly. You've shown me yours every morning. It's only fair. Her hands stilled. You mean your office? He nodded, his eyes kind. Yes. Come by tomorrow if you can. I'd like that. Emma's cheeks warmed. Are you sure I'd fit in with all those business people? Ryan chuckled. You'll fit in anywhere, Emma. Trust me. He paid for his coffee, their fingers brushing briefly a spark so delicate it made her heart skip. Then he smiled, turned, and left, leaving her pulse racing behind the counter. The next day, London was wrapped in soft grey clouds, a quiet kind of beauty that carried both peace and promise. Emma held a small paper bag of croissants she'd baked that morning as favourites. She took the train, watching raindrops chase each other down the glass. When she reached Blake & Co. Properties, she froze at the entrance. The glass building gleamed like a mirror of the sky, too grand, too polished, too far from her little bakery world. But then she remembered his words, "You'll fit in anywhere." So she took a deep breath and walked inside. His office was bright, modern, and perfectly quiet, just like him. Emma placed the pastries carefully on his desk and smiled faintly to herself. He'd probably tease her for bringing them again. Then her eyes drifted to the far wall. Framed photographs lined the shelves, awards, events, people. And then she saw it, a single large frame, right by the window. Ryan stood beside a woman with soft curls and striking blue eyes. The woman's hand rested on his chest, their smiles effortlessly beautiful, the kind born from shared love. Emma froze. Her throat tightened. She didn't need to ask who the woman was. The door opened. "Emma," Ryan said, surprised but warm. "You made it." She turned quickly, blinking hard. Yes, I just wanted to drop these off." He walked closer, smiling softly. "You didn't have to, but I'm glad you did." "I should go," she blurted. He frowned. "Already? You've barely been here." "I forgot something at home," she murmured, backing away. "Emma," he said gently, "did I do something wrong?" Her throat burned. "No, you didn't." And before he could speak again, she hurried out of the office, her eyes stinging. That evening, the rain finally came, soft, cold, and endless. Emma sat by her window, hugging her knees. The bag of croissants sat untouched beside her. "He's married," she whispered, voice breaking. "He has a wife." Her tears came quietly, not angry, just heavy, the kind that came from disappointment, from daring to hope again and being wrong. She didn't go to the bakery the next day, nor the one after. By the fourth morning, her heart still felt like it was standing in that office, staring at that picture. Ryan noticed immediately. He came to the bakery each morning, only to find her gone. By the fifth day, he couldn't take it anymore. He approached Mr. Carter quietly. "Do you know where Emma lives?" The old man looked at him with knowing eyes and sighed. "Be gentle with her, lad. She's got a tender heart." Ryan nodded. "Always." That evening, rain fell again, steady, unrelenting. He stood outside a small brick apartment, his hair damp, coat dripping. He hesitated, then knocked. The door opened slowly. Emma stood there, hair tied loosely, sweater slipping off one shoulder, her eyes red and tired. "Ryan?" she whispered. He nodded gently. "You've been avoiding me." "I needed space," she said, barely above a whisper. "Space from what?" Her silence said everything. "Can I come in?" he asked quietly. After a long pause, she stepped aside. The apartment smelled of chamomile tea and rain. A small lamp glowed near the couch, where a sketchbook lay open. He noticed the drawing, the bakery window where he always Saturday. "You drew this?" he said softly. She didn't reply. Her hands were clasped together, trembling slightly. He turned to her, his voice low and sincere. "You saw the picture?" Emma's eyes flickered up. He nodded. "I knew the moment you left. You looked at me like I'd betrayed you." He took a deep breath. "Her name is Clara," he said gently. "She was my wife." Emma's eyes filled instantly, but she said nothing. "We divorced 3 years ago," Ryan continued, his voice steady but hollow. She fell in love with someone else." He paused. The memory hurt to say aloud. "My best man." Emma gasped softly, her heart twisting. He gave a broken laugh, one without humor. "I thought I'd never breathe again after that. I built walls around my life, work, silence, control, until you." Emma's lips parted, trembling. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I didn't want your kindness to turn into pity," he said. "And because, for the first time in years, I was happy again, and I didn't want to ruin it with the past." She turned slightly away, tears gathering in her lashes. It just hurt, seeing how happy you looked. Ryan stepped closer, voice low, trembling with truth. "That picture was taken before everything fell apart. I kept it there not to remember her, but to remind myself of what I survived." He took another step closer. "You were never a replacement, Emma. You were the reason I remembered what hope feels like." Her breath trembled. "Ryan." He lifted a hand, brushing her tears away with his thumb. His touch was careful, tender. Then he leaned closer, his forehead resting gently against hers. "You don't have to be what she was," he whispered. "You already are everything I didn't know I needed." A small sob escaped her lips. Her hands moved instinctively, resting against his chest. He covered them with his own, strong, steady, warm. "You didn't break me, Emma," he said softly. "You healed me." For a long, fragile moment, they stayed there close enough to feel each other's hearts beating. Then Ryan pressed a soft kiss to her forehead, lingering there as if to promise peace. Emma closed her eyes. The tears that fell now weren't from pain, but release. He whispered against her skin, "I don't want to live in the past anymore. I want to start again with you." When he finally stepped back, he smiled faintly. "I'll let you rest," he said quietly. "But I needed you to know I didn't fall in love with what I lost. I fell in love with you." Emma nodded through her tears, whispering, "You didn't lose me, Ryan." He paused at the door, rain glistening behind him. "Then maybe we still have a chance." And as he disappeared into the night, Emma leaned against the door, her hand pressed to her heart, her lips still warm from his gentle kiss. For the first time in a long time, she wasn't afraid of love. Because some stories don't begin with perfection. They begin with broken people brave enough to try again. The next few days passed quietly, like soft rain against glass. Emma tried to lose herself in work, kneading dough, arranging pastries, pretending everything was fine. But every time she glanced toward the cafe window, her mind wandered back to that night, to Ryan's voice, his eyes, his words. "You didn't replace anyone, Emma. You healed someone who thought he couldn't be healed." She hadn't seen him since, but she felt him everywhere. In the morning light, in the smell of coffee, in the way her heart still skipped when someone walked through the bakery door. Then one Friday morning, Mr. Carter came in with a small white envelope in his hand. "Special delivery," he said with a grin, placing it on the counter. Emma frowned. "From who?" He winked. "You'll know when you read it." When he left, she wiped her hands and opened the letter carefully. Inside was a neatly folded note written in Ryan's familiar handwriting. "Emma, you once said good things always start with coffee and kindness. Let's start again, just you and me. My driver will pick you up at 5 p.m. Wear whatever makes you smile." Or, Emma's heart skipped. For the first time in days, she felt something spark inside her again, a quiet, steady warmth. At exactly 5, a sleek black car pulled up outside the bakery. The driver stepped out and smiled politely. "Miss Emma, Mr. Blake asked me to bring you." She hesitated at the door, nervous and excited all at once. Then she smoothed the front of her soft blue dress, took a deep breath, and stepped inside the car. As the city passed by, the evening light turned golden. Her hands fidgeted in her lap, her heart racing faster the closer they got. She had no idea where they were going, and somehow, that made it even more beautiful. "Here we are," the driver said softly, opening the door for her. Emma stepped out and froze. Before her stood a charming new shopfront on a quiet London street. Freshly painted white walls, large glass windows, and a sign above the door that read, "Emma's Place." Her hand flew to her mouth. "Oh my goodness," she whispered. Behind her, Ryan appeared, smiling softly in the glow of the streetlights. He was dressed simply, no suit, no tie, just a white shirt with the sleeves rolled, his usual calm warmth in his eyes. "You came," he said quietly. You did all this?" she asked, her voice trembling. He nodded, stepping closer. "You told me once that you dreamed of a place where people could walk in and feel loved, not judged." He looked up at the sign and smiled. "Now it's yours. A fresh start. A place that carries your heart." Emma's eyes filled instantly. "Ryan, this is too much." "No," he interrupted softly. "It's just right." He took her hand, his thumb brushing over her knuckles. "You gave me light when I didn't deserve it, Emma. Let me give something back." Tears slipped down her cheeks, and Ryan gently brushed one away with his thumb. "Don't cry," he whispered. "This is supposed to be our first date, not a heartbreak." She laughed through the tears, her voice shaking. "This is the most beautiful thing anyone has ever done for me." Ryan smiled, his forehead lowering to rest gently against hers. "Then it's a good start." And there, on that quiet London street, under the soft glow of evening, he kissed her slow, careful, and full of all the words he didn't know how to say. Inside, the bakery was warm and welcoming. Soft lights, wooden counters, and the comforting smell of vanilla and hope. A small cake sat on the counter with a message written in frosting. "To New Beginnings." Emma laughed when she saw it. "Did you bake this?" Ryan grinned. "Let's just say I supervised." She smiled, running her hand over the smooth counter, her eyes wide with disbelief. "Ryan, this place, it's perfect." He stepped behind her, his hands resting lightly on her shoulders, his voice low and steady. "You deserve perfect, Emma. You've always deserved it." She turned slowly to face him. "You've done so much for me, and I don't even know how to thank you." He looked at her with that same calm smile, the one that made everything else disappear. "Just stay," he whispered. "That's all I want." That night, they sat by the window of the new bakery, sharing cake and laughter while the rain began to fall again outside. The world felt quiet, like it was watching something sacred unfold. Ryan reached for her hand. "You know," he said softly, "the rain always seems to find us." Emma smiled, leaning her head against his shoulder. "Maybe that's our thing," she whispered. "We met in the rain, we healed in the rain, and now we're starting again in it." He kissed her hand. "Then I hope it rains forever." Months passed, and Emma's place became the heart of the neighborhood. People lined up for her pastries, her warmth, and her laughter. Ryan often worked from the corner table, pretending to check emails while sneaking bites of her croissants. One afternoon, as the sun poured through the window, Emma wiped her hands on her apron and walked over to him. "You know," she said, smiling, "you've stolen at least 5 cookies today." Ryan chuckled, standing and slipping his arms around her waist. "And yet you still love me." She laughed softly, resting her head on his chest. "More than the cookies." He kissed the top of her head and whispered, "That's all I'll ever need to hear." Years later, when people passed by Westbridge Lane, they'd point to the white shop with the golden sign and say, "That's where love built a bakery." And if you looked through the window, you might still see them. Emma and Ryan, side by side, laughing as they kneaded dough, their hands dusted with flour, their hearts full. Because sometimes the sweetest love stories don't begin with fireworks. They begin with forgiveness, second chances, and a man who sends a driver with a letter that says, "Wear whatever makes you smile." Because real love doesn't always arrive perfect. Sometimes it drives to your door, waits patiently in the rain, and builds you a bakery instead. Did you enjoy this story? Kindly let us know where you are watching from. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel. Thank you so much for watching.